What's up, Taiwan? Thank you for joining us this weekend. I'm Joyce Tseng with the latest news. The number of volunteer soldiers serving in Taiwan's military reached a 6-year low in the first half of 2024. That's according to new government data. It's reigniting debates about how to attract and retain soldiers. Chris Gorin reports.
Taiwan's military is bleeding volunteers. That's according to new figures released by the legislature, showing that many combat units are only about 80% staffed. Experts say that puts a strain on active duty soldiers and makes operations more difficult.
延长你值班的时间，这个人员的疲劳会增加啊。第二个就是你可能要减员操作，就是你可能这个系统要10个人才操作，你可能要弄到9个人或8个人来做。那对于这个武器系统的效能是会有这个打折的。
The number of volunteer soldiers at the end of June was just under 153,000. That's down from a high of nearly 165,000 at the end of 2021, a drop of more than 7%, and the lowest level in 6 years. Despite these low numbers, the Defense Ministry said last month that it exceeded its recruitment goals for the year. While volunteer numbers are down, Chinese military activity around Taiwan is up. Since the election of President Lai Ching-te earlier this year, who Beijing views as a supporter of Taiwan independence, incursions of Chinese military planes and vessels into the areas around Taiwan have ramped up substantially. Some believe that more can be done to attract and retain volunteer soldiers.
能够在预算就金钱能够加给补偿之外这个来讲真的是补偿，能够让这些主战单位额外的勤务不要增多，我觉得这个能够增加留营率那额外勤务包括什么比如说救灾勤务
Taiwan continues to increase its military spending and weapons purchases. But hardware means nothing without the soldiers to use it, leaving recruiters with a tough job ahead as they try to fill in the gaps. Ethan Pan and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. President Joe Biden has called out what he describes as China's aggressive actions in the Indo-Pacific.
China continues to behave aggressively, testing us all across the region. And it's true in the South China Sea, the East China Sea, South Asia, and the Taiwan Straits.
Biden made the comments at a leaders summit for the Quad, a regional grouping that includes the U.S., Japan, Australia, and India. He accused Chinese President Xi Jinping of using diplomacy to pursue China's interests, but he also emphasized the need for dialogue with China to prevent conflict. U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has declined his Democratic rival Kamala Harris's offer for a second debate. Speaking at a campaign rally in North Carolina, Trump said it's too late to hold another debate as early voting has already started. He claimed Harris made the request because her campaign isn't going well. The two nominees went head-to-head in their first debate earlier this month, in which Harris was widely viewed as the winner. Voting day in the U.S. will take place on November 5th. In the Middle East, Israel and Iran-backed group Hezbollah continue to exchange heavy airstrikes. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, thousands of Israeli protesters are urging their leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, to refocus on releasing hostages held in Gaza. More Israeli strikes hit southern Lebanon as fears grow of an all-out war in the Middle East. The Israeli military says it's been striking extensively on Lebanon after detecting what it describes as plans by Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah to attack Israeli communities. Hezbollah has fired dozens of missiles back, it says, in retaliation for a wave of Israeli attacks, including what Lebanon's health minister calls a targeted strike on Beirut that's killed at least 37 people, including senior Hezbollah commanders.
من بيناتهم 3 أطفال أعمارهم 6 سنوات 4 سنوات و10 سنوات وكذلك بيناتهم 7 نساء.
Israel and Hezbollah have been trading rocket and artillery fire for months at Lebanon's southern border. But the situation is now escalating after thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies used by Lebanese and Hezbollah officials exploded this week. injuring thousands of civilians. An attack widely believed to be Israel's doing, though they've neither confirmed nor denied their involvement. Meanwhile, in Israel's Tel Aviv, flames started by protesters angry at their country's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They are urging their leader not to engage with Hezbollah, but instead to refocus on securing the release of hostages taken captive by the Palestinian group Hamas almost a year ago in Gaza.
The majority of Israelis want a hostage deal.
I'm not worried about our enemies around us. I'm very, very worried about the enemy who is inside here within us.
My message is to my government: do this deal, make this deal happen, any price, whatever it needs.
Israel's retaliatory military offensive in Gaza has now killed at least 41,000 people, mostly civilians, a war these Israeli protesters want to see end, despite more violence looming, as Israel signals a shift in goals from removing Hamas in Gaza to halting Hezbollah's attacks across its northern border. Devin Tsai and Joyce for TaiwanPlus. Heavily armed Israeli troops raided the office of news network Al Jazeera in the occupied West Bank, ordering it to close for 45 days. Here, live footage aired by the Qatar-based channel showing an officer handing over a military closure order to an Al Jazeera staff member in Ramallah city. Back in May, Israel banned all Al Jazeera local operations, calling it a threat to national security, also raiding a Jerusalem hotel used by the station's reporters as a makeshift office. A sculpture by Chinese artist and activist Ai Weiwei was shattered after a man pushed it over at an exhibition in Italy. Ai's broken piece was on display for a show titled Who Am I? In the northern city of Bologna. Security footage captures a man toppling the sculpture and holding a piece of it over his head. The exhibition's curator says the man is a repeat offender in the art world. Bologna police say a 57-year-old Czech man was arrested at the scene. Investigators looking into the deaths of 3 people who ate snail-filled millet dumplings have ruled out the possibility of trace pesticides left over from farming. Taiwan's Food and Drug Administration found a chemical used in some pesticides while testing the leftover dumplings, but it says the levels measured were far more than would be expected if used by farmers. It's a result that raises more questions about the case, which has also left several others in intensive care. Investigators are now focused on 2 scenarios: accidental use or deliberate poisoning.
这所有的可能我们还是要再去都没有排除啦，可能我们会特别在食材的这个部分脉络跟流向，这个特别来加强。
Taiwan was once known as the Butterfly Kingdom due to the country being home to more butterfly species than many others. But as the population of one eye-catching species declines, conservationists are worried the country may lose that title and, more importantly, its treasured butterflies for good. Wesley Lewis has the details.
Once common across northern Taiwan, the great purple emperor butterfly is now a rare sighting. The butterfly's numbers have dropped sharply over the decades. Faced with the insect's potential extinction, conservationists have been working to monitor the vulnerable butterfly species. But its natural habitat has made those efforts challenging.
基本上就是那种很浓密的森林，所以大指蛱蝶在这些浓密的森林里面，怎么样去求偶，怎样去交配，怎样去产卵，其实都很难观察。
Taiwan is often called the Butterfly Kingdom, as the country is home to over 400 butterfly species. But in the 1980s, commercial collection of butterflies became a lucrative business in the country. Collectors would trade packaged specimens and merchandise made of wing clippings, fueling an international trade that would decimate the populations of various butterfly species, including the great purple emperor, coveted for its rare color.
我们只能根据前人的观察。 当年一天观察141只，那现在一天只能观察10只、20只，你就知道它确实变少了嘛。OK， 但是没有很精确的数字啊，这个蛮可惜的。
What's more, human development and urbanization in northern Taiwan has further harmed the species with large-scale habitat destruction.
日本时代最早在台湾发现台湾的这个蝴蝶的时候啊，连万华都有，你知道吗？新店、万华都有，所以显然就是我们这边的那个都市化，把那个适合的环境给破坏。
The great purple emperor only lays eggs on hackberry trees, meaning their habitats are extremely limited. And as climate change and rising temperatures push the species to move to higher altitudes for cooler breeding grounds, conservationists worry that the butterflies might not find hackberry trees there.
到处都有破树，它为什么不用？显然它是被这边的温度跟湿度圈住了。不过现在环境开始慢慢暖化之后，它们必须要赶快往上跑。那现在就会面临到一个问题啦，现在就是你。 树木有没有办法适应到那么快往上跑？
It's not just Taiwan's great purple emperor that's facing an existential threat. Results of the UK's annual Big Butterfly Count have shown the lowest numbers in the survey's 14-year history, which scientists say signals a larger environmental crisis.
We've got about 20,000 species of insects in the UK. The butterflies are just the largest, most visible, most easily identified ones. So when their populations are crashing, that should really be a big wake-up call that something is seriously wrong with the state of our environment.
In response to the troubling survey results, conservationists in the UK have called on the government to ban pesticides that are harmful to local butterfly species. And here in Taiwan, conservationists are working to keep a close eye on wild populations of the great purple emperor, while also introducing educational initiatives in schools about the importance of ecological preservation. The hope is that these conservation efforts can restore the great purple emperor population and help the species return to its former glory in the butterfly kingdom. Scott Huang and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
A traditional martial art unique to southern Taiwan is at risk of dying out. Community leaders there are hoping to stop that from happening. Pharrell Hughes tells us how.
In southern Taiwan, a community relearns part of their history, a traditional form of martial arts called Shilo Chikan. Once a necessary skill for defense against bandits and other threats, local organizations are hoping to re-spark interest and keep the tradition alive by integrating its movements into events and exercise classes.
不管是长辈或者是小朋友等等的舞步简单，然后呢也不会到非常的困难，然后简单可学。
The martial art is unique to Yunlin County, documented throughout the community's history, and now passed on through children's books.
那些史料的收集是有一点点小辛苦啦，因为这方面的资料并不多。那收集之后呢，要再把它融入成一个故事，因为要有故事性，小朋友才会想要看。
In the future, community leaders are hopeful the martial art will spread, bringing movement and exercises to other regions, and even be recognized at the national level.
推广给各个社区或者是长照机构，或者是我们的这个各地的社团以及学校，让我们体育署在运动人口倍增这个计划里面，能够把西罗气感武术把它融入进去。
The amount of people learning Shilo Chikan is dwindling, and its skills may no longer be necessary for self-defense. But community leaders say they're worth maintaining for the benefit of the country's health and culture. Alex Chen and Pharrell Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more of our stories. Finally, we leave you with images of paratroopers descending from the sky in the Netherlands to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Operation Market Garden during World War II. I'm Joyce. Take care and see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.